Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Employable, a roundtable on employment and ABLE accounts. My name is Rachel Fackender, and I will serve as the panel moderator. So we are so pleased to bring this important conversation forward in celebration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Held every October, this observance seeks to educate individuals about disability employment opportunities, obstacles, and to recognize the many and varied contributions of workers with disabilities. Today, we're going to be doing just that, but we're also going to be folding into the conversation how individuals with disabilities can save their income without jeopardizing eligibility for current or future benefits like supplemental security income and Medicaid. I could not be more thrilled with our lineup for today, a team of advocates and experts with decades of experience who are all passionate about helping individuals and their families gain meaningful employment and save for a better life experience. So today I am joined by ABLE United Director John Finch.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining today.
President and CEO of ABLE Trust, Allison Chase.
Good morning, everybody.
And lastly, Manager of Associate Diversity and Inclusion at Publix Supermarkets, Latarsha Melvin.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Thank you all for taking an hour of your time out of your Thursday for this really important discussion. We have a lot to cover, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Allison, we're going to start with you. Talk to us a little bit about the employment landscape in Florida for individuals with disabilities.
All right, so thanks, Rachel. So I'm going to start with some data because I think that it's always important for us to really understand what is truly happening. And it's not great. So for people with disabilities in Florida who want and are able to work, 34% are actually working. For the general population, individuals without disabilities, that number is over 75%. So there's a gap of over 40% of people who are able and willing to work with disabilities and the rest of the population. So we know that there's a lot of work to do, but there's also a lot of opportunity. So although we look at that number and say that's unacceptable, we also know that we are really in a time right now where the work that we do in supporting individuals with disabilities who want to go to work can thrive in the environment in Florida. So there's several things that are happening right now, and I think that it's a great confluence of exciting opportunities. So as we're coming out of the pandemic and recovering, Florida is recovering jobs. And everybody hears every night on the news how businesses are just dying for good workers. So we see this as an opportunity for individuals with disabilities to be a part of that solution. And they really are becoming a part of that solution. I am at the Florida Chamber Foundation's Future of Florida Forum right now, and I cannot tell you how many business leaders that I have talked to this week who've said, we need to know more about what you do. We need to get connected to individuals with disabilities. We know that when we hire people with disabilities, it's not just the right thing to do, but it's a good business decision. And it's good for the rest of our employees. It's good for our communities. So there is a lot of opportunity right now. The other thing that I think is really such a wonderful thing that has happened through the pandemic is the increase in conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, that's such an important part of our community, of our state, and really making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, everybody has a chance for prosperity. And we at the ABLE Trust are making sure that individuals with disabilities are included in that conversation. Because we know that individuals with disabilities should be at the table, but also that they cover the broad spectrum of diversity. You know, people with disabilities represent every gender, every ethnicity, every racial background, and we want to make sure that they are part of the tremendous opportunity that's happening around DEI here in the state. And so I think that there's lots of opportunities, and we just have to grab hold of it and take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And John, you've been an advocate in this community for several years, previously having been at the ARC of Florida. How have things changed for the disability community from your perspective?
And I think Allison kind of kind of led up to where we're at, and knowing that there's better opportunities than I think there was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I'm fortunate to run the state of Florida's ABLE program, which frankly didn't even exist 5 years ago. One of the stigmas that a lot of individuals faced, especially in the disability community, is when they're trying to put money aside to save for a rainy day, or for whatever that next thing that may happen, or just for their future in general. And so previously, individuals who may now or in the future rely on public benefit programs were restricted to only having $2,000 in assets, which typically isn't a lot to go anywhere, especially when an emergency comes your way. And so really kind of forced individuals to stay impoverished, and it didn't allow families and friends to help out as well, because that would count as income. And so what ABLE did, it really, one of the greatest pieces of legislation in the past since the Americans with Disabilities Act, was allowed states to create tax advantage savings and investment accounts with the unique ability to put funds in the account and not count as a resource for SSI or Medicaid or other public benefit programs. And so that was just a huge sweeping changes, because now it allowed families to start putting money aside now when their child was younger, and it allowed individuals who were relying on public benefits to put extra money in, so they didn't have to spend down on unnecessary items, but actually could save it for the future. And it allowed those that were working to be able to say, hey, is there a way where I could put money aside and grow tax-free, or have the potential to grow tax-free, to use for just about anything that's going to help support them, and then improve that life, and then just have that flexibility to use it as they see fit. And so I think the ABLE Act, especially as Florida's kind of led the way in one of the first programs to launch ABLE United, to really change that kind of landscape when it comes to saving with a disability.
That's right. And one thing that I think is important to also touch on, because it's more recent legislation, is the Working Persons with Disabilities legislation that was passed here in Florida. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a handful of years ago, Florida is unique in that we don't have what they call a Medicaid buy-in program, which allows individuals receiving Medicaid services to kind of help offset the cost and buy into the program. And so it was challenging for the state to say, okay, ABLE has the resource and savings portion of it, but it restricted people on how much income they can earn. And so through some legislation that was actually passed in 2019 and came into effect 2020, which, something else happened around the beginning of 2020 that kind of, shut everything down and lost the highlights in the newsreel, but and actually put a handout. So if you're on the chat box and you see, everybody I know is in listen only mode, but there's a handout, and actually put a flyer on the Working Persons with Disabilities language, because it's unique in that it says, okay, we solved the resource limit, but we haven't solved the income issue, where it restricted on how much earnings an individual could have if they were on SSI or Medicaid. Specifically, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities that were receiving I-budget Medicaid waiver services, those that are on long-term Medicaid. So, for example, I know the traumatic brain injury waiver was rolled into that. Well, this legislation, and it was impacted, allows individuals to actually have a significant amount of earnings, over $50,000 per calendar year, and that income not impact their Medicaid eligibility. So I thought that was huge, and it's just getting the word out there. And so I attached the flyer. If you find other families or individuals useful, please download that and share it with others in your community.
Awesome. So now I want to transition to you, LaTarsha. Publix is known for diversity and inclusion in the workspace, especially when it comes to individuals with disabilities. Can you share with our attendees what your mission is at Publix?
Of course, our top mission for the company is to be the premier quality food retailer in the world. However, to get there, we are definitely dedicated to the employment value of our associates. So we're dedicated to our associates and their well-being, as well as being involved as responsible citizens in our community. So even though that is our mission statement, we do have ways of getting there, and we do realize that having a diverse community, having a diverse associate population is definitely what we need, and it's definitely what we strive for in our company.
Awesome. And what advice would you give an individual who's looking for a job?
For sure. Some advice that I would give them is to definitely do research on the company. Make sure that the company is a great fit for you. Be prepared for the interview. Getting yourselves ready for that face-to-face conversation with the employer. Also, as part of that is having questions ready for the decision maker who is making the decision about the job. So you want the interview to more be like a two-way conversation, not just about the employer asking you questions, but also asking the employer questions to make sure that everything that you are needing for yourself in order to do a good job is being met as well, and that they're able to make those accommodations for you if there are accommodations that are necessary. So getting yourselves ready is definitely a good point. Oftentimes I hear people may say, well, I don't have experience. Yeah, you may think about those volunteer activities that you may be a part of. Get them listed down, on your resume so that you're able to talk about what you may have done from a volunteer perspective. But just getting yourself ready to have that face-to-face contact with the employer who is making the decisions. At Publix, we're about customer service, so you definitely have to be able to take care of our customers, and there are many different ways of doing that, and we realize that at Publix.
Love that. Really great advice. So, Allison, let's come back to you. What type of resources are available to individuals who are currently seeking employment through Able Trust?
Sure. So the Able Trust, which is different than Able United, and I know that John and I want to make sure that, Able, it confuses everybody, but the Able Trust was created 31 years ago by the state legislature to be a support organization to the state vocational rehabilitation program. So we are proud partners of vocational rehabilitation and know that is the biggest resource that's available to individuals here in Florida who want to get a job. And so there are VR offices and VR counselors all throughout the state, in every local community, both large and small. There are also VR providers. So organizations like Centers for Independent Living, Goodwill, small and large nonprofits that VR works with to help individuals get jobs. So that's where, we say go there first. So because not only does VR help with job search, but they also help with job preparation. So there's a tremendous amount of resource, for education. So I got this report this morning about what does the workforce look like in Florida for the next 10 to 20 years. And the four largest career areas are healthcare, business, technology, and architecture and engineering. So those are the kinds of things that we all need to know, when we're starting to, if you're making a career change, you're just starting out, what are the jobs of the future? What's going to be available in your community? So all of that kind of information a VR counselor can help with. We also have a really incredible career source system here in Florida, also in every community, and partners with vocational rehabilitation. So, I think first and foremost, like LaTarsha was saying, get ready for a job. There's so much information that we all, as independent job seekers, job changers, career growers, need to know and understand. And I think the other thing that is one of the most important things for all of us is increasing our networks. So most of us get jobs not from applying online and getting plucked out of, the hundreds and hundreds of people that are also applying for that job, but it's who you know. And, we all have to help grow those networks. And that's one of the things that vocational rehabilitation and a lot of the career and technical ed programs that DOE sponsors, and you all may have seen the Get There campaign that talks about the career and technical education programs and, how that's a really quick and great way to get the experience, but also make the connections. So finding ways that you can, just doing information interviews, calling LaTarsha and saying, LaTarsha, can I just come talk to you about what it's like to work at Publix? And you never know where that's going to go. But that's how most people get jobs, is through networks. And so I think, the systems are there, but also that personal connection is going to be what helps us all be successful in our careers. And via our career source, the education programs can help with that.
Man, I'm a living testimony to that, Allison. I mean, to think, so the background of the ARC, when I was there, we were pushing the state legislation to allow ABLE, and to see that it passed, and then to be able to move over to the state to actually run the program, it's kind of my story. And so, yeah, that networking, huge, and using those volunteer opportunities, like what Tarsha said, you know, you never know where that conversation or where that individual can help you in the future.
Every job that I've had throughout my, you know, when I started working in high school to today is because I knew somebody. It's not because I was selected out of, you know, dozens and dozens of candidates. And I think that that is something that we all need to come together and help individuals with disabilities to be able to build their own networks, because it's going to serve you for the rest of your life.
That's right. Sure. And, you know, John, what would you say to individuals who are maybe hesitant, though, to gain employment for really fear of making too much money and therefore impacting their eligibility for benefits like SSI or Medicaid?
That's good. And so I'll tackle the SSI portion and the SSDI portion at the same time, because really those programs are geared to individuals who cannot work, whether that be their disability is so severe or they're in a situation where they need that assistance. And so those pay cash assistance. SSI can pay up to $731 a month to help offset the cost of housing and food and clothing. And then SSDI is usually based on somebody's work history, either their work history and now their disability is severe enough to where they can no longer work, or a parent's work history. Both of those programs are really geared, and they have programs surrounding them to really, if they can, help individuals become employed. So for example, with SSI, the way that they look at income is the first $65 they don't count as income, but anything above that, it's reduced in half until they reach their full potential, which at the end of the day is only about $1,400 or so of extra a month that somebody can earn without impacting their SSI. SSDI, it just depends on where you're at, but here in Florida, that threshold is about $32,000 on an annual basis. So that's the Medicaid limit. I apologize. For SSDI, it's about $1,350 a month. So not much. I mean, really, $1,350 is not going to get you. But I noticed that a lot of individuals, they're more relying on the Medicaid benefits they get from SSI. And I think that's what's unique about the way that both the Working Persons with Disabilities and something called 1619B, part of the Social Security Act, that allows individuals that are on Medicaid, they receive SSI benefits, but have the opportunity to get gainful employment. Those programs are allowed to say you can keep your Medicaid benefits because it is a very set of robust funds, but it can allow you to earn up to $32,000 a year. So really, it goes down to sitting down with your family or your job coach or whoever is helping you or assist you with getting benefits to say, am I able to be employed enough to where I can make more than what SSI or SSDI is, and I can still keep those Medicaid benefits? And that's really where I think the cross is. Where are you at? Are you able to get that type of employment? And it is taking a leap of faith. You know, I think the opportunities that we have now, though, there's a lot of places where there is careers that you can grow at, and it's also going to find out what you love to do. I think a lot of people get stuck in things they are doing because a job is a job, but it's really finding something you're passionate about and being able to make that a career.
That's right. Okay, so an individual lands a job. What comes next? Latarsha, let's start with you. How does Publix approach the onboarding process, ensuring inclusion and accessibility in the workplace?
Well, first we start with our decision makers. Our decision makers are educated about various different topics. Definitely accommodating for disabilities is one of them, and just making sure that everyone is treated with dignity and respect. You know, everybody wants to be treated with dignity and respect, and that starts from the top and it goes all the way down. So educating our decision makers about how to, you know, basically how to treat one another. And, you know, it just becomes part of our culture. It's just it's just what we do. It's just how we act. But then also we have available resources for our decision makers, our human resources, our associate relations department, and that's an area that's devoted strictly toward how we are relating to our associates and making sure that we are providing everything that we need for our associates to be successful in our workforce, in our work environment. So we just lay the groundwork, and definitely following our mission statement and being a part of a company that makes sure that our associates are taken care of, is definitely rewarding for me. But definitely we want to encourage the same type of behavior company-wide. We have over 200,000 associates, and a lot of them are leaders, and we want to make sure that everyone is treated with that dignity and respect, which is what we touched on up in our mission statement. I would like to go back to another question that you had for Allison as it
Sure.
relates to resources. I just wanted to give out some public specific resources that people can use in order to land a job or land a career with our company. And if you go to Publix.jobs, there's a lot of information on Publix and as it relates to tips on how to get onboarded with the company, and also being able to make that personal connection. What Allison was talking about earlier, you can build your networking environment from that particular platform as well. We have a section in there called Ask a Recruiter. And if you click on that tab, Ask a Recruiter, it'll bring up all the recruiters in the company, but it's specific by geographic location as well as the type of job that you are looking for. And you can make a direct connection, that personal connection with the recruiter who is responsible for those particular positions or those jobs with the company. So that's a resource that maybe a lot of people not know about, Publix, but we do have that, and you're also able to make those personal connections, which are very important. Getting to the right person, getting to someone who can assist with your questions that you may have, or your particular situation, something that's specific to you. We have those people who are able to help you out with you individually.
That's great. I love that. Okay, so the individual's been working for maybe 2 weeks or more and their first paycheck comes in. So we all know how important it is to budget and consider how much you need for everyday living expenses, or even how much you want to put away and save. So John, an ABLE account is a great way to save. What would be the steps to take when thinking about contributing to an ABLE account?
Yeah, I think the first step is to make sure that you have all your necessary needs met, right? Like you have your groceries taken care of, you have the lights are on if you're paying your utility bill or your home. And then, when you have that leftover funds, an ABLE account makes sense in that it is flexible. First of all, you can put funds in. Usually you get to choose how you want to contribute those funds. It's usually done through a connected bank account, but you can send in a check. You can actually set up a gifting page to allow other people to contribute to your ABLE account. And then once the funds are in there, you get to choose. Do you want this to be long-term or short-term savings goal? Or are you planning on having a future purchase? All those kind of decisions need to be made by that individual, and that really kind of determines where your risk tolerance is. Do you want something like an FDIC product where I'm just saving money, or do you want to truly invest it for something later down the road? And we have products designed for each of those. So whether it be an FDIC savings account, our individual investment funds, or a pre-designed portfolio like a conservative, moderate, and growth based on your kind of, your risk tolerance. But whatever those investment products are, the flexibility for ABLE is allows you to take those funds out within 2 to 3 business days to be used. We just launched a third-party online check request, so now individuals can say, hey, I want to pay my credit card bill off or my utility bill directly from my ABLE account. You can do that. We also have a debit card now that can be attached to the account. So I think that's what's great, is just once that money's in there, you can start using it for whatever you need, whether that be for tomorrow's groceries or for a future car.
Now, with an ABLE account, you can save up to $15,000 per calendar year, but can you share a little bit about Able to Work and how individuals may be able to save even more?
Yeah, so one of the unique benefits of ABLE, since it is new, new legislation gets introduced to kind of change it to make it more accessible or to allow a different features. And one of the things they put into place was able to work. What that legislation did was it allows individuals who are not saving for retirement, whether that be they don't have an employer-sponsored retirement plan or they don't have a retirement account set up, they can actually use ABLE accounts as their retirement account, where they can save above the $15,000 annual contribution limit, or they can take advantage of the savers credit, which will reduce somebody's tax burden. So that's the flexibility going back to ABLE accounts, where it could be a short-term, long-term, or even be used for a retirement account. And if it is, it can take some additional benefits of using it as a retirement account.
So we've talked a lot about saving, and I think that we can all agree that we've learned over the past 18 months really the importance of saving for the unexpected. The pandemic was the unexpected. And so, Allison, what do you think is the value for individuals with disabilities having an opportunity to save?
So I think, when we build assets, we build prosperity, and when everybody prospers, our whole community is better, our state is better. And, so we don't want to leave individuals with disabilities out of that equation. We want them to be able to save for what they want to save for the future. It increases your choices when you have assets. John really did a great job of talking about choices. You have choices of how you're going to save and what you're going to save for, and when we all have access to assets, we're stronger, we're more independent. And prosperity is really about equity. We want everybody to have the opportunity to prosper in our state. And I just think that having this legislation in place and the opportunity really does go a long way in bringing everybody along. That whole notion of a rising tide raises all boats, and we want the boat for people with disabilities to be rising up just along with the rest of us. And it's only good for everybody, for people with disabilities to be able to save.
That's right. Latarsha, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. What do you think is the value for individuals with disabilities being able to save?
Well, I mean, I was always, taught, about independence, definitely making them that much more independent. You never know about life and what's going to come about in life. So, being able to be more prepared financially, for sure, I think is something that we all should have a lesson in. And, as Allison said, not to leave, those disabled behind. We want them to, have a sense of independence as well. Being able to thrive and prosper in their environments is also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're about halfway through our discussion, and I'm seeing the questions coming through. So we do want to take a couple of questions right now from some of our attendees. So let's see. First one is for you, Allison. How does one start the training and employment process for a 23-year-old man with autism?
So that's a great question. And 23 seems super young to me. And I know for some people, they think, oh, I'm behind the curve, but it's never too late. So my recommendation is to get in touch with either your local vocational rehabilitation office or your local career source. So, it's not just about finding a job. It's about making sure that, we all understand what are the opportunities in your local community, in our state, what kind of training is needed, helping to build the networks within those industries, whatever industry choice you have. But there's so many options, and really, VR is a tremendous resource. It pays for education, it pays for training materials, it pays for job development. It's a really great resource that I think, that's where everybody should start. Individuals with the disabilities that are curious, that's the first place to start. And then the possibilities are truly limitless once you get connected with them.
So here's another question, and it really relates to saving with an ABLE account. So John, how soon is too soon? Can you start saving from an early age, or is this better for more of a middle-aged individual?
So save now, right? I mean, I think that's the hard part is just doing. A lot of what we're talking about is proactive, whether that be if I'm looking for a job or I want a job, you have to do something about it. You can't just sit idly. And so the same goes with ABLE accounts. You know, we did a webinar a few weeks of roundtable with some financial professionals, and both their children had ABLE accounts, and they're like, man, wish we would have had this as soon as my child had a diagnosis, or as soon as I could. And I think that's a lot of it is just starting now. You know, there's nothing like holding you back to be able to, and if you have the means to start saving now, I think that's what's unique about ABLE is once that initial $25 contribution goes in, after that, $5 minimum, right? And so you can just get started, try it out, see if it works for you, and if you have extra funds to put it in the account. So I would say, you know, take the 15 to 20 minutes, go online. That's what's another flexible thing about ABLE United. It's all online. So if you're able to set up a social media account, then you can set up an ABLE account, ableunited.com to get started, open an account, and then within 15 minutes, you can start saving for a better life experience.
And I think it's important too to put into perspective kind of the age range of our account holders. So the youngest, 6 months old. So that's really, it's never too young to start saving. Our oldest is in their late 90s, and our median age is about 30, 32, 33. So, you know, we definitely recommend anyone, it doesn't matter how old or young, it's never too early or too late to start saving. So next question here, Latarsha, I'd like to give this one to you. Would it be possible for my 30-year-old son with Down syndrome to have a job at Publix with assistance during a work shift?
That is definitely something that is possible. Of course, we would have to explore more of the details to see how we can make it happen, but it's definitely something that can be considered and definitely something that we can take a look at for sure.
Awesome. And so that kind of falls into the realm of accommodations, right? So it looks like we have a couple of employers that are with us today in attendance. So Allison, what kind of tips would you give employers when it comes to accommodations?
So first tip is don't be afraid of it. I think that that's one of the biggest fears and barriers when employers say, oh my gosh, this is going to cost me so much money and I'm going to have to make all of these big renovations or changes to my workspace. And that, you know, the data really does not show that. Most accommodations are very simple. Most of them cost less than $500, with a lot of them costing nothing. You know, it could be as simple as moving something from one side of the desk to the other. So I think, you know, just know, don't be afraid of it first. And then also know that there are resources for employers. Vocational rehabilitation also provides that service to employers free of charge to help figure out what accommodations are. But in that same vein, I think that the thing that most people don't even think about, and I was on another panel with an individual who is blind and visually impaired and head of HR for a division of Amazon, and she said, people with disabilities know what we need. We know what the accommodations are, so just ask us. You don't have to figure it out. We've been dealing with this disability, most people, for most of our lives, and we negotiate barriers every day and know how to solve those issues. So, you know, make the person with the disability your partner in that and the expert. So, you know, it's not something that employers have to figure out on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great tips there. So, John, a couple of questions here because I want to make sure that we answer this to clarify. So, an individual is asking, I'm curious how an employer gets the paycheck into the ABLE account. So can you clarify that particular piece for us?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. I can say the easiest way is if once you get paid, you either set up an automatic contribution to go to the ABLE account from your checking or savings account. But there is a way where an employer can set up contributions directly to your ABLE account, but it's really employer driven. On our website, there's a resources, forms, publications page. On there, we actually have a direct deposit form that you can provide to your employer. At the end of the day, it requires the employer basically setting up a check to be sent to Able United on behalf of your benefit to be deposited into your account. So those are two of the primary reasons, ways to get money directly deposited into an Able account from a paycheck. Often we see about 25% of our accounts have systematic contributions set up where it's the beginning of the month or that pay period. I just want to put $100 into my Able account or 25, and you can do that online when you manage your account for Able online.
Awesome. And seeing a couple of the same question here about, are there a certain number of hours that a disabled individual can work per month without losing their benefits? John, you feel like you can take that one?
I'll do my best. So it just depends on, how much you're paying, right? I mean, if you're getting $1,000 an hour, you probably can only work a couple hours a month. So it just depends on your individual. And it depends on what type of benefit programs they're on too, because SSI has a rule. If you're worried about losing your SSI check, SSDI looks at about $13.50 a month is how much you can earn. If you're a blind individual, it's $22.60 a month. Medicaid, it really depends on the type of Medicaid you have. If you're on one of the waiver programs, that Working Persons with Disabilities has upped it so you can earn a significant amount of money. For people that are just on regular state Medicaid plan, maybe the health insurance portion of it, you can become what they call a 1619B and then be eligible to earn additional funds from that. So talk to your benefits counselor, reach out to Social Security. They have a variety of programs, but you remember a lot of their programs are geared to getting you off of Social Security, SSI or SSDI, so you can become substantially gainfully employed because the earnings potential you have is a lot higher than a $771 check a month.
Awesome. So a couple of other questions as it relates to employment opportunities at Publix. Latarsha, I know that you've mentioned before to me that you guys have walk-in interviews. Can you share a little bit about how individuals can learn a little bit more about those opportunities?
Sure. We do often host what is called walk-in interviews, and I would say for the majority of our hiring opportunities, they are advertised on social media platforms. On Facebook, we have what is called Publix Careers. So if you put in a search engine Publix Careers and start to follow that page, you'll be able to see all of the different walk-in interviews company-wide. They're doing on the spot, putting your application on the spot, and on the spot interviews and on the spot even decision making that is being done. It also is a place where we're staffing for new stores. So those opportunities are advertised there as well. We're also on Twitter. And then also I can't stress enough what that point Allison made earlier about making those personal connections, being able to get to the right person, the recruiter who is over those areas can definitely help you to be able to get, even more knowledge about, career opportunities that we do have. So a lot of our advertising is done through the social media platforms that we do use.
Awesome. Just scrolling through a couple of other questions here. Thank you guys again for submitting them. And if you do have questions, it is just in the control panel under the questions box.
Can I make a comment, Rachel, while you're scrolling through the questions?
Absolutely can.
So I know you said that there were some employers that were online. I tell you, for me, in the personal experience that I've had with associates who are disabled, I find some very unique qualities that I find that are very valuable from an employer perspective. Honestly, just excitement that I often see with those who are disabled when they land that job and they're just so happy. They're, and everybody knows a smile and happiness is infectious. So, it just spreads around the store, spreads around the department. But then also dependability. They tend to be so proud of their accomplishment, and instead of getting there at 9 o'clock when they're supposed to, they tend to get there at 8:30. But before it's even time. So dependability is definitely something else from an employer's perspective that I think is very valuable. And then also retention. Retention, they want to stay. They're in a place where they're enjoying themselves. They're in a place where they're, taking care of the customers and, helping the customers, and the customers are happy to see them. And I remember even one time that we had a young man who was a front service clerk at one of our stores down in Sebring, and he was visually impaired. When I tell you the customers would get in line just to have him bag their groceries, they would wait. They would wait for him because there was that personal connection, and he just always took care of them, and he would seem to always be there. Every time I went to that store, he was always there. It's like, do you ever like lay down and go to bed? But he enjoyed it. The customers enjoyed him, and he stayed there for quite a few years. So those are just some things from an employer's perspective that I have seen over the years.
I love hearing those firsthand stories.
Yeah, it sounds like another. Go ahead, Alice.
I was just going to say, we did a survey last summer of over 600 Florida businesses about disability workforce inclusion, and found that like 86% of businesses say it's important to them, but it's not just important to the businesses, it's important to their employees. So, along the same lines of what Tarsha was saying, the customers want to do business with businesses that reflect their community, reflect their families, and 1 in 4 Americans has a disability, so it's common, it's part of the human condition, it's part of all of our lives. If we could sit here and talk probably for the rest of the day, about the connections that we have with people with disabilities, and we might have disabilities ourselves. So that's, I think, important for businesses to know that your employees want to have people in their businesses that reflect the diversity of their community, and so do your customers. It just makes businesses stronger. The other thing that LaTarsha was talking about was the dependability. Those soft skills, which I learned recently that we don't call them soft skills anymore, we call them foundational skills, which I like that a lot better. And I think that, people with disabilities often build those skills just in everyday life experience, like I was mentioning, having to learn how to overcome barriers and solve problems that they encounter every day, and that kind of thinking employers want. We hear from businesses all the time, I can teach you how to do the job. I can teach you the actual mechanics of what the job requires, but I can't teach you to be dependable, to think for yourself, to be a part of a team. So anytime you have an opportunity to build those skills, but also to be able to demonstrate them, to talk about, this is what I've done, with other people as a group, and what I learned, and this is how I think, and this is a problem that I've solved. And to be able to demonstrate those kinds of qualities is so valuable and will make you stand out with businesses who are hiring.
Love that. Lots of love in the questions box of just comments of people love Publix, or they know someone with a disability that works at Publix and have had a great experience. So kudos to the Publix team and you, LaTarsha. Love seeing that here. So I'm seeing several questions about 401ks. And so, John, I think it's important that we address that, because a lot of folks are asking, can they deposit a large amount into the ABLE account from a 401k?
Yeah, I also wanted to clarify, the great thing about the disability community as a whole and those that work in it is you start to get friends. So I see a friend on here, Natalie, that is, we just had a meeting with her a couple of days ago. She's like, hey, make sure you correct yourself. Well, don't correct, but further clarify. So remember, ABLE accounts shelter resources. They don't shelter income. So even if you put your whole paycheck into an ABLE account, that would still count as earnings when it comes to Social Security purposes, IRS purposes. They're still going to count that as income. But once it's in the ABLE account, it's not counted as a resource. And for SSI, that's up to 100,000. Not worried about SSI. These accounts can go up to 418,000. But when we talk about putting money into the ABLE account, it can come from any source. So we came from the beneficiary putting their own money in, family, friends. They can help contribute. Anybody, a church, a synagogue, a community event raises money, they want to put it into somebody's ABLE account, they can do that. It is limited to 15,000 per calendar year. Although a 401k cannot be directly rolled over into an ABLE account, it's a kind of almost like a 529 savings account. It's similar to that where it falls into the IRS Treasury codes, or 529A. Savings in college prepaid programs are 529s. And so there is a clause to allow those type of contributions to be rolled over. But when it comes to any other type of financial product, like a 401k or an IRA, those would have to be liquidated. Whatever penalties or taxes would have to be applied, and then the leftover could be put into an ABLE account up to 15,000 per calendar year. And so for an individual, I know on the college prepaid side, for example, individuals had to go over multiple calendar years because they had above 15,000, and so they had to do it over multiple calendar years.
Mm-hmm. So in the same vein, I'm seeing some questions from folks that need a little bit of clarification on what is a qualified disability expense and what can the ABLE account be utilized for. So I think it's important to touch on that a little bit. Can you share that, John?
Yeah. So what's unique, once it goes back to the flexibility of ABLE accounts, and so they really left the door kind of almost wide open. They said, the high level clause is anything that's going to help or improve somebody's health, independence, or quality of life, help or maintain. And so that's pretty broad. And so they gave some very high categories such as health, housing, transportation, assistive technology, support, employment. If you were like, I need to go buy a uniform, or I need to pay for gas to get to my job interviews, or I want to buy lunch on my lunch break. All those would be qualified disability expenses, and even those basic living expenses. So if you got a debit card, and it's kind of cool, Latarsha. So with our prepaid debit card, we get some stats on where people use, and Publix makes the list, where people, it's like, look, 2% of all fees were used at a Publix from there. So that's kind of cool. But that's the flexibility ABLE, allows you to do. Generally, things that are not approved or not be, will be frowned upon would be giving the money away, using it for alcohol, tobacco, gambling. So don't just go wild and blow all your money on the lottery unless you win. Then you have a whole other host of problems. But so those are generally frowned upon. But if it's we hear people going on vacation with their funds. We hear of individuals saving for a future down payment of a house or making modifications to their vehicle. All those are qualified disability expenses.
Love that. So quick question for you, Latarsha. Could you elaborate a little bit about what types of jobs are available at Publix?
Sure. I mean, well, honestly, the opportunities are endless. People think we're just a grocery store, but there's so many different types of jobs that are available. All of them would be accessible through Publix.jobs. If you're interested in retail, there's a retail tab. If you're interested in corporate, there's a corporate tab. If you're interested in warehousing or manufacturing, there's those tabs too. So wherever your interests lie, that's where you would put it at. You want to find your happy place. You want to be happy when you come to work. You want to do something that you love. I think John mentioned that earlier. But every job that's on our website, as it relates to, if it's a non-retail position, has the job description, and you're able to see what the job entails. You're able to see the requirements for the job. There's a set of minimum qualifications, and then there's a set of preferred qualifications. So everything that is necessary for those positions. A lot of our retail positions are entry-level positions, and I think it was Allison who mentioned it earlier, where she said that, you know, you bring those foundational skills. You bring those foundational skills, the skills at the job, on the job can be trained. A lot of our positions are like that. So where you receive on the job training. I tell people all the time, I don't work in retail anymore, but I am still on the job training. I am learning every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something. So you're not expected to come with the whole package, of course. Who would be that whole package? I don't know, but you know, you're not expected to know or have everything. But like I said, there are some jobs that have minimum qualifications, but a lot of our jobs are just entry level positions that you just learn on the job. Like I said, you bring those foundational skills. I'm going to use that term, Allison. I'm going to wear it out.
I know, it's a good one.
Yeah, because I have been saying soft skills for years, right? So you bring those foundational skills, and that's really what it is. You're bringing you're bringing, you know, a foundation. You're bringing, you know, something to the table. You bring those foundational skills, and everything else can just build upon the foundation. So I love that term that I have now learned again on the job training. So yeah, that's what I would say about Publix jobs. Um, you know, but just be open and just check it out. Just check it out.
Love that. Well, we're quickly coming to a close. An hour went by really fast, but before we start to wrap things up, I do want to open the floor back up for any last words. So Allison, let's start with you. What's the number one piece of advice you find yourself giving for individuals considering employment?
Well, before I give that, I have to say I'm amazed that only 2% is going to Publix, because I'm pretty sure that I spend way more than that. We call it Mother Publix at my house, so love Publix. So I think my number one piece of advice is just getting a job, having a career. It's a journey, you know, so you don't always start out where you want to end up. And that's a good thing, because as LaTarsha has said, it's always on the job learning. And Florida has lots of resources to help you try things out. You know, you don't have to take the first thing that's available. And you can also, one of the great benefits of VR is that they've got on the job training experiences, work experiences, internships, you know, so you can try it out before you make a commitment. And I think, you know, just don't be afraid. You know, I think jobs are the great equalizer, you know, and it's the start of your journey to prosperity. And, you know, all of the things that we've talked about here today with able accounts and jobs, that's really what's going to make our state better.
That's right. LaTarsha, what about you? What's the number one piece of advice you find yourself giving for individuals considering employment?
First of all, I would say definitely finding your right fit. You know, when I was speaking about the young man earlier who was visually impaired, and he was a front service clerk, and he was bagging. He was happy doing it. You know, that was his fit. That was his happy place. So finding, you know, your right fit, I would say, is first and foremost, and then also don't give up. Don't give up, you know, keep at it, you know. Oftentimes, you know, we may not receive that yes right away, but, you know, keep at it. You know, even when I came to Publix, it took me 3 tries to get on. But you know what? It was all worth it. It was all worth it. And then also believe in yourself, knowing that, you know, you within yourself, what your capabilities are and that you can do it. You know, don't doubt yourself and believe in you, because when you believe in you, it exudes, you know, your confidence. It shows, you know. So believe in yourself. So that would be my piece of advice for everyone who is looking for their happy place in their careers.
I love that. Good words to live by. Okay, John, any last words on why those attending who maybe don't have an able account should consider opening one?
So before we get there, if you have the chat box open, I put several links. A lot of them are government benefit related, but I also put a link in there for VR here in Florida. It's called rehabworks.org is their website. But Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but it starts young, right? 13, 14, 15 is when they start the process of saying, you know, believe it or not, that school, becoming a young adult is quickly around the corner. My children aren't there yet, so I got a few more years. But to start the process early, and then that way it's a lifetime, and it kind of gets you prepared for wherever that next steps are.
Right.
I'm also going to put in the chat too, just in case anyone isn't familiar with CareerSource Florida, this is the link to their website, and you can find your local team. As Allison mentioned, there are 24 local workforce boards located across the state of Florida. So check them out as well.
Awesome. And then anybody else, you have any other chat messages from our panelists? Go ahead and put that in there. You can put Able Trust in there. And it's funny because we always there's this rivalry, I think, because Able Trust has this long history. Then we come in with same colors and just put United and just threw everybody out the window.
That's okay. We know how to share. We know how to share.
Yeah, we're trying to be friendly. You know, we're all friendly here. We're all trying to have the same cause here. There you go, foundational skill. So Able United, at the end of the day, it's really part of, you know, it's not the end all be all, it's part of your journey. And I think just like careers are a part of a journey, when you start out with employment, you never know what you're going to end up with. To imagine what I'm doing now for 15 years plus in the disability community, I could have never imagined. So John finished that 20 years ago, that'd been great. But you don't know. And so, this person had a question on spendthrift provision. So yes, there's federal law, there's state law that says able accounts are protected from creditors. But able accounts, I think part of that planning process, when you think of the whole of how am I going to care for this individual when I have passed away, is part of that estate planning tool. Able accounts don't replace special needs trusts, for example, but it's part of their financial tool belt. And it's a great way to start stockpiling money now. And the risk level is so minimal, right? It's a $25 deposit to get things started. That's your money. You get that flexibility. And so I tell individuals, just go ahead and try it, see what it's like. You know, we run promotions occasionally too to help incentivize individuals. So be on the lookout for those. But it's just an opportunity to get started, try it out, and seeing how it can fit in your financial tool belt and whatever that may look like. I see some good questions here on some of our ABLE. And so just as a reminder, ABLE United is Florida's program, and there are other states out there that have different state programs across the thing. But I want to still Rachel's line here about the knowledge is power, but I'll let her finish with that. And it's true. I think we heard a lot of great information. Now it's just to go and spread that love to others and get started.
That's right. Knowledge is power. And we are so appreciative to our panelists for taking time out of their morning to discuss this important topic. And we've gotten several questions. So if we didn't address your specific question during today's roundtable, please feel free to reach out to us directly at info@ableunited.com, and we will try to get back to as many of you as we can over the next 1 to 2 weeks. But thank you again. What a great conversation, empowering. I hope all of our attendees took away something new for their employment journey. So thank you all again for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.